transaction ensures that either all of the commands successful. If one of the commands in the transaction fails, then all of the commands fail. So for this transaction, we create a query where we can check if there are two statements, and if one transaction fail, if one statement fail in the transaction, then the whole transaction considered as unsuccessful. If both the statement execute successfully, then the whole transaction is successful. So it's really very useful uh, in SQL. So it will first create a query where we can check how transaction works. So we will first create a query like begin, try, and try, begin, catch, and catch. So inside this try block, we'll write begin transaction. So whenever transaction start, we need to commit that transaction. So for that, we need to use commit transaction. And suppose if transaction, if you got any error in the transaction, then we need to roll back. So currently there is no statement inside this transaction context. So first we'll write two statement for this. So we create this table, users table. So in this users table we update the statement. So let's see, we update this statement, update users set city. So I will try to update the city. So we'll try to update the city as Mumbai, where ID equal to 2, and write another statement. I'll try to write two statements here. Try to update the rows. I'll try to update the email equal to lower. Here I am updating two statement, right? So Bangalore. So here I am updating the city and also updating the email ID to lowercase. So here it is creating two statement, and after creating the statement we need to print that statement that it is successful. So we'll write transaction is successful. Okay, next if it got any error, then we need to write as, so here it will roll back the transaction, rollback transaction, and after that we need to print as transaction is not successful. So this is about transaction, and here I am writing this begin transaction, and after the begin, suppose this is successful, then it will print transaction is successful. If it is not successful, then it will come to this catch block and roll back the transaction, and after that it will print transaction is not successful. So now I am updating it right now and I am executing it. So you see there are two rows affected, one row affected for the city and for email ID, and transaction is successful. And if you see in the table, we will see select asterisk from users table. Here we will see that both the records are updated here. Okay, now we update that query to fail that statement. So I will try to update another city, and the city column length is 10, so I am using more than 10 here, so it will give us some error. Okay, now you see, if you again execute it, you will see 0 rows affected transaction is not successful. So here it came to this catch block and the transaction is rolled back. Okay, and here it is printing transaction successful. So this is all about transaction. It is really very useful in our project. Whenever you're creating any suppose any procedure or any object where it requires multiple statement to execute as a single unit, right? Whenever you execute something as a single unit, then you need to use transaction. It is really very useful in that situation. Okay, thank you.